Well, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's talk about how we can drive food security in our country. The challenges faced by farmers in the north, who account for most of what Nigeria eats, are affecting food prices and availability in the booming coastal south that's home to the mega city of Lagos. More than 80% of Nigeria's farmers are smallholder farmers, who account for 90% of the country's annual agricultural production. Farmers are facing low yields because there are those who believe that it's because government has failed to provide infrastructure and other things to mitigate the effects of climate change. An instance is that the prices of food stuff and some other perishables they suddenly soared in the aftermath of the collapse of the Mokwa bridge in Niger State, which left hundreds of trucks conveying food items trapped. Could that have been avoided? Is that something for the agricultural industry or ecosystem to look at, or some collaboration that is missing somewhere? We have conversations around that this morning with Dr. Debo Akonde, who is joining us virtually. He's an agribusiness development specialist, director at International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, and he's also DG, Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we also have with us Dr. Kabir Yusuf, who is the National Project Coordinator, the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones Project, SAPZ. He also joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us this morning, Dr. Yusuf.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay. Well, gentlemen, let me begin with you, Dr. Kabir. You are up north now, so you'll probably be able to, this will probably resonate with you a little more. The effect of climate change on the agricultural value chain, particularly the logistics. Taking the instance of what happened in Mokwa in Niger State, which is, of course, in the north. So, Dr. Yusuf, help us understand, what is it that you think Nigerians need to understand about what happened and if we could have mitigated it?
Thank you very much. So the effect of climate change is actually real. This is what we're all coming to terms with, which is why the whole mantra of climate change, which is mitigation and adaptation, has been sung for a long time. Now, what just happened in Mokwa just shows us the reality of our lives. Climate change is here to stay. And unfortunately, with climate change, this emissions really is not a geographical centric activity, which means if there's emission in China, the effect can still be in Africa. So it's indifferent of emissions per location. However, with every disaster, it can be turned into opportunity. With the situation of flood in Mokwa, this also brings us to the realization that we need to have climate resilient infrastructure, which is what government is trying to now establish in Mokwa. As you're aware, the president provided 2 billion for infrastructure now in Mokwa. Now you would see the infrastructure that would be constructed would be climate resilient with perhaps much more flexible flood systems around. Now, still, with regards to agriculture, currently we have flooding in Mokwa. But after this flooding, this would create a very, very good platform for bumper harvest during the dry season because of the residual moisture in the soil. Now, the same flood water would have created ponds that can be transformed into aquaculture with the right entrepreneurship skills. This would be an increased employment and employability sector for the youth and the community there.
Well, there's a lot packed in there. The question a number of people will be asking is how soon before we start to get all of that, because right now, the farmers, particularly in Mokwa, they are not smiling. And the people whose goods have been stuck in that area also are not smiling. Dr. Agric, I wonder what your own issues are. You are an agribusiness champion. And so one would wonder, first of all, what comes to mind for you when you think about the effect of climate change on food security in our country and what we ought to do if we are not doing it? And if we are doing it, are we doing it the way, at the scale that we ought to? Particularly given the fact that a good chunk of what we consume in Nigeria is produced in the north and transported down south.
Thank you very much for that question. Again, I think I will agree with Dr. Kabiru that climate change is a reality that we all have to accept and live with. It is critical, to our agricultural sector. I am only a bit concerned that at this stage of our life as a country, we are being met unaware by some of these climate change issues. I know that as far back as 2007, I worked on climate change awareness program in Nigeria, working with the British government. And quite a lot that has been done between then and now in terms of designing the national strategy that relates to climate change mitigation and adaptation within the country. For me, I think we just need to take this more seriously. To accept that climate change is completely part of our agricultural sector and not look at it as a standalone or as an adult. I've had now, with the response from Dr. Kabiru, that the government is doing something precisely to mitigate against the problem in Mokwa. But what I would have loved to see is that this will make us to now design a strategy for the country. Not just for Mokwa, for me, when you see issues, you start looking at a bigger picture and start examining whether similar issues can happen in other states across the whole of the country. And then you now start designing a proper, a well thought out, thorough mitigation plan and provide resources for that to happen. Again, this speaks to how we see agriculture in this part of the world. That our agriculture is still very rudimentary in the approach that we adopt. I have always been saying that there is nothing like agricultural transformation without rural infrastructural transformations. If you neglect the rural infrastructure, you will not expect rocket science in terms of agriculture. And this is one of the things that has happened with the issue of the climate change. If we understand the infrastructure that is related to the climate change and agriculture, by now we as a nation shall rise up to the occasion to concentrate on our energy and our resources towards those kind of infrastructure. That would be my thought at this particular point in time. Yes, government has started doing something, but for me, I think we can do much more. We need to do much more of an holistic approach, that we adopt, across the whole of the country. Because similar thing that happened in Mokwa can happen in other states. Like what is the plan? What are we planning? What have we put in place to ensure that we mitigate against this incident in other areas as well? Why we are developing this particular structure towards mitigating.
Well, thank you, Dr. Akane. At the end of the day, you just talked about the fact that agriculture is largely rudimentary. It leads to questions about the people who are, in the face of this agriculture. Well, we have a farmer among us. Jerry Toby is with us this morning. He's operations team lead at Jet Farms and Agro Solutions Limited. He also joins us virtually. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Toby. You're a farmer.
Okay.
And
yes, sir.
So when you heard and consider the impact of the flooding in Mokwa on the farmers there who have lost a lot of investments right now, how does it make you feel?
Well, I'll tell you, when I had the situation on May 29th, it's actually very, very saddening situation, because I imagine losing such amount of farm operations, farmland, quite a lot. I spoke with one of the farmer there, and he actually told me how critical this situation was, that he couldn't even pick a dime. He has invested inputs, he has invested seed, he has invested time, resources, and it's actually saddening. And it's so painful that this is happening. There wasn't any early sign warning, there wasn't any preventive measure that was made known by the extension agent. There wasn't preventive measure made by even the state government ahead of this situation. But it's actually very saddening at this moment. And as a farmer, it's always very hard for us to pick up. This is not just a single face out. If a situation happens, a farmer is always investing his whole total life, his whole total being, his whole total profit he has made from last year, his whole seed, believing that when he is going to harvest, he's going to actually take care of his family, his this thing. So when a farmer loses a farmland, he's losing school fees of children, he's losing livelihood, he's losing a lot, and it's actually very painful. And as a young farmer, I'm telling you, it's actually painful. It's a painful period, and I'm shouting. I'm creating a shout out to guys out there that actually lost all this thing. Please take heart. I think from what Mr. Kabir said, the government is actually trying to get to support people around this area. It's actually a very painful situation.
But let me stick with you for a second. So when you said that the farmers didn't get a heads up, they didn't get any information ahead, they weren't prepared for it at all. Does that mean, because the government knew since late last year, 2024, that we're going to have massive rainfall this year. So when you say that there was no preparation for this flooding by the extension services, what's the impact of that? Would you say that, because, okay, maybe I should ask it this way. When you say what they didn't get the heads up, they didn't prepare for it, what should have been done? What could government have done to prevent the losses that farmers are now experiencing?
Yes, so thank you very much for that amazing question. One thing for me at our own end is, for me, I believe that government is an all-encompassing thing, especially the State Ministry of Agriculture, which is particularly in Niger State. What they should have done, basically should have done awareness, creating awareness among the farmers, creating awareness among AFAN, that's the All Association of Farmers from Nigeria, should have created awareness among that community, telling the extension agent to go and speak to guys, don't farm around this area, don't do stuff around this area. If the flood is going to come, you are going to be prone to it, you're going to get affected. Information should have been passed. Yes, we know that NIMET said there will be a lot of flooding and a lot of stuff around it. But beyond just telling us, you also need to create a structure around where these guys should go and do. You told us, okay, in a point A to point B, you are telling us don't farm in this area. Are you trying to create another place? Are you trying to develop another land in another place where we can actually go and farm? Because this is our life. This is how we live. This is what we do to live, to feed our family, to feed the nation. This is where the nation depends on us. Actually, I'll be honest with you, most of the beans you eat come from Mokwa. Very good yams from Niger State come from Mokwa. Some rice and a number of stuff come from Mokwa. And if you're trying to tell us not to farm, well, that means you're trying to tell us that the nation might actually suffer from another high food prices, again, telling us that the farmer, and it's going to cost another reason for government importing rice. So it's one of the things that I think the government should have done through the extension agent, that they should have critically gone out, inform these guys, create another plan B for them and tell them that go ahead and go and farm in this place. Don't farm particularly in this way. And that's the work of the government. The farmers might not know that. The farmers might not have that best information of where to go and do. They cannot just go and leave that area, but except the government give them the go ahead and also prepare them ahead for it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Toby. Well, Dr. Konde, you work with the Oyo State government. Do you think it's as easy as Mr. Toby, the farmer, just said?
Well, it is not as easy as that. Even though I recognize, his pain, and I do understand what it means when you invest, whether in agriculture or in any other area, and you see your investment being drawing away in your presence. It's painful for any person. I think this is much more structural, and I consistently have said, where I've had opportunity, that we should stop looking at the peripherals as a nation, as states, in this country, and start looking at the fundamentals, the structural issues of agriculture, and then look at how best as a nation we can channel our resources towards overcoming all the structural problems. And what do I mean by that? Climate change is not something that just happened just a sudden. It's something that happens with a pointer, as to what action could be taken. The same issue that we experience here in Nigeria is not peculiar to us. This has been experienced by many other countries in the world as well. What did they do? What have they done? Why has it not affected them? In some countries, as much as it's affecting us, it has affected us, at Mokwa. The point remains that how much of our energy are we channeling towards all these structural areas and structural issues? We need to look at agriculture more holistically than the past time.
I beg your pardon, Dr. Akone. When you say structural issues, what are those structural issues? For instance, one major thing and critical, and I'm sure you would agree, is the extension services. So when you say structural issues, what are these structural issues if the farmers didn't really know that, okay, this thing is gonna, because if they knew it was gonna affect them that significantly, I doubt if they would want to invest their resources with such high risk.
So these are fundamental in agricultural issues, all these structural issues that I mentioned. You have the structural issue that has to do with access to information, access to market, access to technology, access to road, access to infrastructure, energy. You are making reference to issue of community aggregation center that could be developed. I mean, quite a lot of them are there. Infrastructure-wise as well. I believe one of the major reasons why we have this impact, of these climate change is the kind of infrastructure that is available at Mokwa, at this particular point in time that is already weakened. So government needs to focus on these areas, and I will speak to Oyo State since you mentioned my role in Oyo State. That for the first 4 years of the government of His Excellency Seyi Makinde, what we did was to channel the little resources that we have to start mitigating against rural infrastructural deficits, that we have in the state. We recognize, that those deficits were there. We recognize that they will impact negatively on our farm sector, on our agriculture, and we started mitigating against that. So you see that quite massively resources were deployed towards rural roads, across the whole of the state, where we know that our agricultural produce are coming from. Beyond that, we are extending that rural road to over 1,200 kilometers of feeder roads now. In the whole of the state, this has commenced. These are not the thing that I would say will happen. It's already happening. Beyond that, within the diverse communities, where we have targeted the high production of crops, we are building what we refer to as agri-logistics centers there. What that does is that it helps the farmer to be able to at least, aggregate and store their product in a place where if you have heavy rain, if you have drought or whatever, your product will be secure. I've had arguments around people talking about silos being built across the whole of the country. And my submission remains to be that it remains to be a garbage in and garbage out. If you don't have somewhere where farmers can keep their product off farm, immediately, what then are they going to bring to town? Reason why we are having close to 20 to 40% post-harvest loss. Niger State, where this happened, is as the landmass that is equal to that of Netherlands. So the farmers are not necessarily supposed. I mean, of course, it's essential because it's their community, it's their area. But like has been said earlier, if we have had that information from NIMET, and we know that this is going to be happening, a special initiative could have been developed to reallocate the farmers within this farming season to plant somewhere else, and where that infrastructure will be well developed. The information has been given, so NIMET is there. And that thing that I will also mention is that making use of government agencies properly. We have Nigerian Insurance Corporation, is it corporation or agency? That has Nigerian Agricultural Insurance Corporation that has the responsibility of insuring agricultural products. I have worked with them. I have insured one of the agricultural industrial hubs in the state. They insured it. I mean, I haven't had any climate change precise damages, that will make me to go back to them. But I ensure that those farms were insured. This could be extended beyond just having insurance security in the hub to that of the farmers across the whole of the countries as well. I think these are critical things that we need to be looking into rather than we do a fair, treatment of these significant issues across the whole of the country. All
right, thank you. Dr. Kabir, this is also, in your purview, and I'm sure some of the issues resonate with you. The challenge, and I think we've had this conversation previously, is about the role of states. And I know that yours is largely coordinatory in scope, but it goes back to exactly how do we dissipate national initiatives, national information to the states and to the localities so that we do not suffer the kind of fate we're having to deal with right now?
Thank you very much. So first of all, I want to bring us back to the realization that government cannot be the largest employer of labor. That's very, very important. Now, when I say labor, this means that government cannot itself produce for its people, which means there needs to be private sector centric. And this is what this government has done to ensure sustainability in all the activities, specifically with the agriculture, which you can see in the Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zone program, which I coordinate. It is government-enabled, private sector-led industrial model that establishes designated zones for modern agro-processing and production clusters. And these zones are designed to provide a conducive environment, policy, where agribusiness can operate efficiently, leveraging on these shared infrastructure, which are climate adaptable services, just to ensure that operational cost is being reduced, climate change and other financial ambiguities have been de-risked, and we also attract private sector investment. So what do I mean by this? NIMET, I'm happy that our brother has already mentioned the farmer. NIMET has already notified state governments. NIMET has notified publicly. Just last 2 weeks, we signed an MOU with NIMET. And why did we do that? This also brings me back to government cannot be the largest employer of labor. Government cannot do everything itself. Now, there's so little resources and so much to do. Now, we have about 250 million plus citizens in this country. It's not easy reaching each and every one. And this is why we need the private sector. For SAPZ, our NIMET MOU centers around expanding NIMET information, climate weather stations, specifically to agro clusters that are not within the current NIMET catchment area, but are within the SAPZ catchment areas. This means that our farmers will get real-time information. But for ours now, you also need to remember the fact that there is a literacy rate issue in our country. So what we did is as government is to ensure that these weather informations are done with smart devices that are audible in different languages that these farmers can understand. And I'm happy that Dr. Debo bring to the fore the issue of NAIC. So NAIC, other than other climate insurance agencies insures farmlands not just 100%, but government has already incentivized it to 50%, which means it's less costly than any insurance agency that you're going to go to. So this is very, very key. And I'm sure the states have done a lot to ensure that these farmers are insured. These farmers have the knowledge, but there's so little government can do. And this is why the adoption of government-enabled private sector-led agriculture is being conducted as a national policy.
Well, two things I'd like you to quickly speak to, Dr. Yusuf. Number one, you talked about the NIC, the Agriculture Insurance Corporation. When you say that the state governments have done a lot, does it include insuring the farmers with the Agricultural Insurance Corporation? That's one, because right now, as you know, Mr. Toby has spoken to, I don't know, I'm not sure that the farmers they have any idea what they're going to do going forward. The second thing I'd like you to speak to, still talking about the effect of climate change. You spoke to the fact that the special agro-industrial processing zones they are climate change sensitive or whatever. Please explain. Are they also vulnerable or susceptible to flooding? If so, are there barricades? Are there things that have been done to ensure that the losses are not as bad as the one we're experiencing right now?
Yes, thank you. So I wouldn't presume or would like to speak on behalf of the state government, but what I know, being with decades of experience in the agricultural sector, is that this information is being disseminated as well to state governments, and I've seen a couple of state governments disseminating this information through their ADPs, which are extension workers. Now, however, we also need to understand insurance is not an easy thing. There needs to be a behavioral change at all levels. It's not easy to expect your layman farmer to go and give his hard-earned money for it to be secured in the event that a disaster happens. And in the event that a disaster does not happen, nothing comes back to it. So yes, a state government could have gone to notify the farmers, send extension workers, in fact, even register the farmers. But what is the propensity that most of these farmers will agree to go and insure their farmlands? So you see, that's a question of a behavioral activity which perhaps is left for the farmers, and also more orientation. Because I think we cannot overemphasize orientation. So perhaps with this, more farmers would be willing to insure, as they have seen, they might see the gains with some of their neighbors that have already insured their farmlands. Now, with regards to the SAPZ, agriculture in itself currently is not organized as it should be. Dr. Debo did mention Netherlands. You see, Netherlands is 22 times smaller than Nigeria. But it would surprise you that Netherlands earns about 165 billion euros annually from agricultural export, not just its own internal use. This means that for us to reach that level, we need to organize agriculture from a way of life to a profit-making business. And that's what we've done at the SAPZ. Not that we're climate-proof or we're not susceptible to climate change, but we have put in several mitigations along the way. Now, what we have in SAPZ in each of our participating states is a two-model system of an agricultural transformation center and an agricultural industrial hub. These transformation centers are where we cluster these farmers. We support them with good agronomic and climate-smart practices to boost their production. Don't forget, we ensure that these farmers are insured, specifically with NIC being a government agency. We ensure that there are weather stations, which is why I mentioned the MOU we just signed with NIMET to ensure that reach audible weather stations for these farmers to know when to plant. We also have extension agents that are standby over there. But importantly, post-harvest loss. And the issue of MAQUA, what we have just seen is disruption of the market, whereby commodities such as ram, yam, and other things have increased in prices. Now, when you have an organized system whereby you have a proper aggregation, you would not see that. So what we have in an SAPZ is an aggregation system through a binding agreement. Currently in Nigeria, our farmers plant, not knowing where their market is going to be. Unlike other sectors, in the oil and gas, when you're producing your oil, you know your market. You've signed an agreement. In the power sector, there's what we call the power purchase agreement. By the time you're producing power, there's already a buyer of that power. So that's what we've done in SAPZ, and we've done a pilot here in Kano, and we're also now doing scale up across the SAPZ states. For all our farmers, they have an MOU with off-takers. For whatever we produce in SAPZ is meant to be processed, because our main goal is to ensure that whatever we produce is processed and domesticated in country to market shelf finished goods, so that we can reduce the amount of import of processed agro materials, agro commodities, shifting away from a net importer to becoming a net exporter. So coming back with what we do and how that helps us with regards to effects of climate change, basically is adaptation to climate change. It is here to stay. We cannot change it, but we can definitely adapt, which is first, we ensure our farmers, we ensure the increased yield with the good agronomic and climate smart practices we support them with. There's always an extension agent, but importantly, that agreement. There's always a takeoff agreement that has a lot of caveats that safeguard these farmers from a lot of force majeure. And now when you have that, don't forget, we do both wet and dry season. During that, you would have a lot of commodities already being aggregated. So if one arm or one section is being disrupted, you would see then, which means there is enough storage for the market not to be disrupted.
Okay.
Now, another thing, there was a mention of silos. As government, yes, we do have silos to support, but keeping too much food in silos, it's not efficiency. What we want to see as government, what government is propelling, is processing of whatever we produce to finished goods. Now, agricultural commodities are not just for consumption. There's a lot of economic byproducts. So by the time you process these commodities, you would get, take for instance, cassava. You have ethanol out of it and a lot of biofuels that come out of it. So whatever we produce, we want to ensure that it's processed to finished goods. We don't, yes, as good as it is, we had the granite pyramids of the 80s, but that's not what we're trying to replicate now. When you go to developed countries, you don't see granite pyramids. You see working industries, employers of labor. We say agriculture is the largest employer of labor. Now, imagine if we have successfully industrialized our agriculture. From the SAPZ, it has been assessed that each participating state that has an SAPZ would employ about 500,000 youth and women gainfully employed. So this is what we want to see. And I think I've done a bit of justice as to what we do to adapt to climate change as government in the special agro-industrial processing zones.
Well, there are those who will tell you straight up, Dr. Yusuf, that climate change is just one of the many challenges in agriculture. But let me come back to Mr. Toby. Well, I don't know if you've been aware of this whole agricultural insurance initiative. If you are, how many farmers would you say are aware of it? If you make any recommendations now, and there's an issue that Dr. Yusuf also raised, which is no farmer has the courage, well, not many farmers have the courage to take their hard-earned money and put it in the hands of an insurer, an insurance organization, just to, in case of the unexpected, as we say. Can you speak to any of those?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll be honest with you. It's actually saddening that we have to go this route again all this year round. It has actually happened, I think it happened in 2022, if I'm not right, with the flooding that happened in the Nasarawa state, where the area lost a number of yield, a number of farmland, very large hectares of farmland. Talking about insurance, you know, it's actually interesting to hear that NAIC still exists. But yes, I know NAIC exists around 2019, 2020. I actually did some work with them. We actually invited them to come and they wanted to insure whatever we're doing. We wanted to insure our investment. We actually received some support from investors, and investors instructed us that, oh, before you can do this 100 hectares of maize, we have to actually put in insurance. So we invited like 3 insurance organizations. So we shared the insurance. Leadway, we had Nahik, and we had some other distance, because we're actually not even sure if there's an eventuality. Maybe there'll be that there'll be that trust of receiving our money back from maybe the government organization. But basically, we need to.
Oh dear. Well, I believe that we'll get you back. But Dr. Akonde, the indication there is that as information was going out about the likelihood of the challenge of... oh, okay. Mr. Toby, I understand you're back. Please go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So as I was saying, I say farmers are not informed. Basically, because farmers are not always, if farmers are always bold enough to go out and find out information. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Confirm you can hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so farmers are actually wanting out to get this information. Let me say something quickly. There is something called the ADPs. Those are the structures Mr. Akonde did not talk about, the ADPs. The ADPs are very important agency of the government, where they are working with in the local government, in the rural district, to go out and pass this information, gather these farmers. But actually, I'll be honest with you, go and check a number of ADPs. Their offices are dilapidated. They don't even have an office. You go to the local government, you don't see ADP officers, which is supposed to be strengthened. One thing we are encouraging the government, because those ADP are the closest to the farmer, they're going to pass this information about the NAHIC, that's going to pass the information about any government opportunities, any means or any awareness, passing the message of NIMET down to the farmer. So if a farmer is aware that there is a NAHIC and there is an insurance for every crop I do, insurance is not expensive, as Mr. Kabir is saying. Insurance is not expensive, because I'm looking at it. A farmer that is investing over 2 million naira on a crop, on a farmland, is not hard for him to do 2% of that, 2 to 3% of what he's doing. So I don't think it's hard. It's about the way we pass the message to the farmer. I actually believe that if a farmer understands that if he can dedicate 2 to 3% of his money for insurance to avoid any eventualities, he's actually going to do that. But one case that we understand is that this information is not even actually passed across to these farmers. These informations are not, farmers are not aware, especially the rural farmers. So I believe it's a message down to NAIC, it's a message down to the National Orientation Agency, it's a message down to farmer governors like Farmer Bago, to ensure that farmers are well orientated about inputs, because it's not just about even insurance alone. Inputs, the kind of seedlings we use, the kind of fertilizer we use, the kind of post-harvest losses issues around SAPZ. I'll be honest with you, it's around maybe people that are well educated, but I don't even know about SAPZ. So it's one important thing that the information must trickle down to that rural farmer in Mokwa, to that rural farmer in Kebbi, that rural farmer in Doma, that rural farmer in Jere, in Kaduna. So that's what I have to say about it.
Well, Dr. Akonde, I'm pretty sure you have a response to that, but in addition, let's talk some solutions. This whole conversation is about food security in the country, and Dr. Akonde has spoken to SAPZ and what the federal government is doing, and of course, that's just one of several initiatives of the federal government. One of them, for instance, is the National Growth Scheme and Agro Pocket, which is supported by the AFDB. Now, talking about food security specifically, Dr. Akonde, what are the gaps as a country? You are in the agribusiness development field. What are the gaps we must fill? And for how long do you think these gaps must be filled sustainably in order for Nigeria to attain food security 100%?
Thank you very much. Well, I think one of the first things that we need to be looking at, we've been very fixated, with our smallholding subsistence agricultural system for a very long period of time. And I'm not saying that there is anything wrong in the smallholding subsistence agriculture. I'm saying that at this particular point in our life as a nation, we need to start thinking about the other systems that are applicable in the agricultural sector as it is anywhere in the world. If you go to Brazil, to the US, the Netherlands, what we call smallholding here is will not even be referred to as micro in their countries. So when they say smallholding, the question what smallholding is those countries where the agricultural output has been great. This is where we find ourselves, but we also now need to start thinking around other actors in agriculture. And I'm very happy to see the other panelist, young man, talking about agriculture. Being the person that you invited to speak about agriculture. Yes, the smallholders are there, but we need to start thinking about creating a system for the medium and large farmers in Nigeria. We need to start looking at how to develop initiative for younger people to engage in agriculture. I'll give you an example of what has happened in nations in the world. Between 1950 and 1997, 2000 thereabout, the American government, did something that they call the consolidation agriculture. And what the consolidation agriculture means is that they put in a structure and system in place to ensure that their farms now start becoming the numbers of farmers reduce, or the size of the farms increase. So within that period, you will find that the size of American farms reduced. American farmers reduced from around 5 billion to less than 2 million. Reduced. While the size of their land increased from 215 acres to around 487 or 500 acres thereabout. And that was the golden age of agriculture in America. Similar thing is applicable in Brazil and other places. Now, we need to start focusing on that. Let's be honest with ourselves. The system that was feeding us when we were 50 million, 70 million cannot be the same system that is going to feed us when we are now over 250 billion. And not just 250 million, that we are also engaging in using agricultural produce for some other conventionaries and what have you. If you look at the time that we also have a glorious years of agriculture in this country, not very well. We were engaging in a lot of plantations. That was when you will have plantations of cocoa, plantations of palm oil and groundnut, and that is complementing what smallholder farmers were doing. We stopped that, of course, because we got oil. And even when we were doing that plantation in those golden years, there was a little bit of an error that we made. Our plantations were focused much more on crops that were high-nose forests. We weren't developing plantation system for the food that we will be consuming. And one of the things that has affected the kind of the food systems that we are adopting now. Let's be honest with ourselves. And I will use Oyo State as an example. Oyo State sits on a land mass that is around 28,000 square kilometers of land, massive land, meaning that if you combine the whole of the southeast of Nigeria, 5 states together, it's not as big as Oyo State. So you can imagine how big that is. Oyo State is like countries in Africa in terms of land mass. Now, we said that what we have seen in statistics and data is that up to the period of time before this government took over, we had not done up to 10%. Maybe we have moved to around 15% now, as a state because of the diverse approaches that we have adopted. And that 10%, if I need to move it to 20%, I would need close to around another 3.7 million smallholder farmers with the average land size that the smallholder farmers have in this country. Is that sustainable? Is that realistic? It means that if I have to do close to around 50% of the 70% arable land in this state, I'll probably need to close to around 7 million. What is the population of our state? So we need to start, focusing on areas, some other areas that is going to be complementary to what we currently have. In addition to that, quickly, I will mention that we also need to start, again, as I mentioned earlier, ensure that we are not just looking at agriculture as just cutlasses and hoe, you throw it in the soil, it grows. It is much more fundamental than that. You need to look at infrastructure. You need to look at the ideas that has been spoken about in terms of engaging in a very robust information system. I will quickly speak to what was mentioned by the farmer. about the extension agency, the extension agency, the ADP. We all know that the ADP that we currently have in the country now is not as functional as it were in the days when the World Bank were pumping funds into it. And exactly. I dare to question a lot, that is this the same kind of an extension system that is being adopted in the nations where we have food productivity and production, en mass? Is that what they are doing in Brazil? Is that what they are doing in the US? Is that what they are doing in some other countries in Africa, like South Africa? I think, yes, again, we find ourselves in that, we're doing that, but we need to also look at complementary approaches, that will complement what they are doing. E-extension is there, private sector extension is there, and I like what was mentioned by Dr. Kabir. For me, I think my own submission would be that let every state expand on their SAPZ in almost all the regions in their state. You have a central one that is called the Agricultural Industrial Hub. Then have the agricultural transformation centers in each of the region of your state, which is what we are adopting in your state. And those centers will now act as the means, of information, of support for smallholder farmers, of the industrialization of their agricultural sector, in the different states. Let government channel their resources towards the right area rather than doing the referrals.
All right. Dr. Yusuf, I believe that, that is a little bit of that is for you. You may want to speak to it as we close. But add to that, that little information, or rather that little hint Dr. Akonde gave about encouraging younger farmers into the fold, particularly this SAPZ that you spoke to.
Thank you very much. So starting from what Dr. Akande spoke about, which is what we have been campaigning, governments to put in their resources in their SAPZs. Now, it's not like SAPZ is the only means for agriculture, but just as what he also said with consolidation of agriculture, this is what the United States did. So, and going back to what I said is, we need to organize agriculture. It needs to shift from a way of life to a profit-making business. That is the only way we can attain food security. That is the only way our farmers can improve their livelihood, get enough out of agriculture, and also to invest in their livelihood. If you go to the United States, the richest people are the farmers. How do we become such? How do we transition to such? We have to organize our agriculture, no doubt. Now, coming back to also what Dr. Akande said about government expanding and investing in their zones. What we do under the SAP is that this is a federal government fund loan onboarded to states. These loans are gotten from a variety of MDBs, but also there's an issue of counterpart fund matching grant, and specifically not because Dr. Debo is here. We got a notification from their government that they are going to build their transformation center with government money. That is the kind of commitment that we want. Now, this transformation center is the basic foundation for production. This is where you get your climate information. This is where extension agents are there supporting farmers with climate-smart agricultural practices. This is where you reduce your post-harvest loss with primary processing and proper aggregation. This is where you signed these off-taker agreements. Now, with these off-taker agreements, your farmers are assured of market. They're assured that there's a profit coming back to them. And don't forget, with these off-taker agreements, this means that whatever the farmer is going to get is based on prevailing market price. So you don't have an issue of farmer being shortchanged or cheated. Basically, this is really safeguarding the farmer. So basically, this is what I had to say. I think you made mention of something, but I cannot recall. If you can please just
encouraging younger folks, younger farmers into the fold.
Okay, wonderful. So I mean, this is a very good topic you brought up, and this also brings us back to industrializing your agriculture. You do not expect a young person that has a degree to go and hold a cutlass and hoe and farming in the farmland. No, of course not. But if you now mechanize your agriculture, if you provide them with access to finance and the right entrepreneurship skills, you would see young farmers. And that's what we're doing under SAPZ, right? Under the Rural Institution Development component of our program. We're providing access to finance to young farmers. not gratis, because we've understood that anything that is freebies, people don't put the right effort. No, these are loans. These are cheap, affordable, and accessible loans that you can get through the SAPZ. And once you get these loans, you can now organize yourself, which we now support free with such entrepreneurship trainings, whereby you can get tractors and you can lease in these farmlands. So these are some of the innovative activities that we do in the SAPZ to ensure that young people come into farming. There's also the aggregation part. Now, it's not hard labor. All you need to do is to ensure that from our industrial hub, you sign with a processor, and you come back to our transformation center, you sign with a cluster of farmers using their farmer organizations. Now, it's very good, I bring this to bear, is we don't really deal with farmers directly. We deal with them collectively. This is part of the consolidation agenda.
Okay.
Where they're grouped into farmer organizations, and these off-taker agreements are now signed. So young people are actively participating in that, whereby they now act as the middlemen to aggregate and also to sell. So the truth is, right, what this administration is doing is slowly transition our subsistence agriculture to modern agriculture. As we know, our president is for sustainability.
My sincere apologies, Dr. Yusuf. We're totally out of time, but I have to take the final comments of Mr. Toby just in 30 to 60 seconds. And I'd like you to close by asking, or rather speaking to younger people, you know, about getting into agriculture, because the most of the farmers who are in agriculture now, the older ones, in another 20, 30 years, they are no longer there.
Yeah, thank you very much. To all my young guys out there thinking to come into agriculture, agriculture is taking a new space. We are the one that will fill this globe. There's actually money you can make money in it. If you don't go into farming, you can go into processing. If you don't go into processing, you can go into service rendering. Believe that agriculture can make you the next billionaire. It can make you the next rich man. It can actually make you the next greatest guy in that city. So come into agriculture with a smart, and I can tell you, agriculture is sexy, is awesome, is amazing. So to young guys out there, we're expecting you. I'm here to support you. Reach out to me. I'm ready to support you to come into the agric space. And thank you to our government. Please keep on supporting us, making the environment interesting for young guys that are coming to agric space.
All right.
Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jerry Toby, Operations Team Lead, Jet Farms and Agro Solutions Limited. We appreciate your time this morning. Dr. Debo Akande, Agribusiness Specialist and Director at the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, IITA, as well as DG of Oyo State Agribusiness Development Agency. We've also had Dr. Kabiru Yusuf, who is National Project Coordinator, Special Agro-Industrial Processing Zones, SAPZ in Nigeria. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time this morning. We truly, truly appreciate the time you've spent with us.